G'day there. This morning I'm going to be making a batch of yogurt. So I thought I would take you along the journey and show you how we make yogurt in our family. We make a batch pretty much every week. We go through a fair bit of yogurt here, and because of that, over the years that I've been making yogurt, which is probably just over 10 years now, I've really refined it down to the easiest and simplest method, and that's really just so that we can easily make that batch of yogurt every week in amongst all the other family commitments. There's a few reasons you may want to make your own yogurt too. One is just price. It is a lot cheaper to buy the ingredients and make up your own yogurt at home. And the other reason is really about knowing what's in your yogurt. So when you read the ingredients lists on a lot of yogurts, there's a lot of sweeteners and thickeners, and there can be artificial preservatives and flavors and things like that as well in some brands. Obviously some brands are better than others, but it's not uncommon for those types of things to be in yogurt. Whereas when you make it yourself, it really is just milk and the culture that you're using. And the one that I'm going to do today is really that basic. You can add a lot of your own flavors. You can add sugar, and you can add a lot of people add jam and things like that, or fruit into the mix. You can do that when you make it, or you can flavor after you've made the yogurt. And I find it's actually much better just to make a plain yogurt and then add all those other things later on, dependent on how you want to eat the yogurt. If you just make a plain recipe like we're going to do today, it really opens it up in terms of what you can use it for. You can use it like a plain Greek yogurt, maybe on some lamb, or in any other savoury dishes like that. Or you can sweeten it up and use it as a dessert, which is what we tend to do in our family. Quite often we just dollop a bit of homemade jam or preserve on top. So I'll start off by giving you a bit of a run through the ingredients that we're going to use today. So we've got a couple of UHT milks here. This is just a off the shelf, fairly generic brand, but if you are into organic type products, you can substitute that with something like this organic UHT milk here. Now, when you make yogurt, the milk is actually really important. I'm using a UHT milk here today, and that means I don't have to increase the temperature and then bring it back down again like you need to do with a fresh milk. With the UHT milks, this is already done, and that's what makes this a really easy process. So just keep that in mind if you are making a yogurt like this. If you don't use UHT milk, the method is a little bit different, and I'll cover that in a separate video. But if you want quick and easy, UHT milk is definitely the way to go. The next thing I have here is some full cream milk powder, and this is really good to add just to increase the milk solids in your yogurt, and that makes it nice and thick, and that's why you don't have to add any other thickeners and things like that with this particular recipe. Lastly here I have my yogurt starter. So the one that we're going to use today is the one I've been using for many years now. This is a type C ABY yogurt starter. And this one here I got from an Australian supplier called Cheese Links, and they are absolutely wonderful for getting any cheese making and yogurt making type products in Australia. This particular pack I've had now since I think it was 2015 or 16. In fact, I think if we look on the back here we can see some dates. And it says that the best before date was actually 2017, but in saying that, this goes a long way and lasts a really long time if you store it properly. What I do with my yogurt starter is I keep it in these containers. So this is like a little container that you can actually get from Cheese Links, and I bought that when I bought my starter. And all I did was kind of snip the edge of the package off, popped it in this little container, and then I put the both of these in a Ziploc bag and keep that in my freezer. Now you'll see when we go through the recipe today, you only use a really small amount of yogurt starter. So this here has kept me going, a good 6, probably going on 7 years now with this one little packet. So if you do buy your yogurt starters, make sure you store them properly. And if you're using small amounts, you'll find it'll last you a really long time too, just as long as you do keep it in the freezer in an environment where you're not going to have moisture and things like that getting into your yogurt starter. Next, let's have a bit of a look at the equipment. Now, the first thing I want to show you is my Yogotherm, and that is this bit of kit here. And this really is the best thing that I bought for yogurt making. It is a insulated container. You can see it's got polystyrene here within the actual container itself. And then we have this little plastic tub that sits inside. And essentially what you do is you make your yogurt, and as part of that process, you heat it up to the temperature that the bacteria likes. You put that in this container here, which then goes inside the Yogotherm. You pop the lid back on, and because it's so well insulated, it maintains the temperature. Now, I absolutely love this thing because it is always successful at making yogurt, but it also means that I'm not using power. If you're looking at good sustainable options for making your own yogurt, it really doesn't make sense to me to be using systems that you plug in and are using power. You know, this one here, it's just purely the insulation that keeps the temperature that we want for the yogurt making. Next, we have our saucepan and spoon. We'll use those for heating up the milk to the right temperature that we need, and then adding in the starter. Then we have our temperature gauge, and it is important to have a bit of a temperature gauge. Like I've got this one here. This is actually out of one of my cheese making kits. And what it does is it allows you to bring the temperature up to the correct temperature and give you that certainty that you haven't heated up the yogurt starter too much. If you do, you'll kill off the bacteria. And it will also make sure that you don't have it too cool, because if you don't actually have the liquid warm enough, then the bacteria can't actually thrive and start munching on the food and turn your milk into yogurt. Once you've got all your ingredients and your equipment together, the first step is to pop the milk into your saucepan. You want to put in both litres, so I've got 2 litres here of the UHT milk. And then we want to add some of the full cream milk powder. Now, I know you're probably going to be looking for a measurement on this one, but I really do this by feel. I just kind of sprinkle it in, and it probably is somewhere between, I don't know, 1/2 and 3/4 of a cup that I would add to each mix. I tend to give it a little bit of a stir in at this point, but don't worry if the milk powder doesn't fully dissolve. Once you start heating it up, that will dissolve into the UHT milk. Now that I've given that a stir, I'm going to add in my yogurt starter. Now, it is surprising how little of this you actually need. What I normally do is just sprinkle that onto the surface of the milk. And then again, as we start to heat that up, that will start to dissolve. Now, I do recommend as soon as possible, you get the lid back on this, get it back into your plastic Ziploc bag and get that back into the freezer, and that'll help that starter last a long time. We can see the temperature here is starting to go up, and you do need to keep a close eye on it at this stage. Whilst it is warming, it's a great idea to give the liquid a good stir, and that just makes sure that any bits of the starter, like we could see floating around there a second ago, and also any bits of the milk powder that haven't dissolved, actually do dissolve well through the liquid. Whilst your milk is heating up, it's a really good idea to get your Yogotherm ready, and that's because as soon as it reaches temperature, you want to get the liquid into this container and into the Yogotherm itself, and that way it will maintain that temperature that you're looking for. We can see now that the temperature is increasing. It's getting close to 40 degrees, and remember we're looking for about 42 degrees Celsius with this. It's a good idea to keep stirring at this stage as well, because you do want to distribute the temperature throughout the liquid evenly. Otherwise you'll end up with hot spots and cooler spots. And you also want to make sure you're not scalding the milk on the bottom of the saucepan. Okay, we're at temp now, so let's move across to the Yogotherm. Firstly, we're going to pour the milk into the container. Lid goes on top. I do want to make sure that's firmly on. And then we just pop the container into our Yogotherm and pop the lid on top. I will just sit this now on my bench for the next 12 hours or so, and that allows the yogurt bacteria to do their thing and turn that milk into yogurt. So we'll come back in about 12 hours and have a look at what it looks like. 12 hours has now passed, which means it's time to give our yogurt a bit of a check. And from experience, after 12 hours, it should be ready. There we go. If we give that a bit of a jiggle, you can see that that yogurt has now set. And what I'll do now is pop it in the fridge and it will firm up a bit more overnight. Our yogurt has now been in the fridge overnight and it will have firmed up a bit more now. So let's open it up and have a look at the texture. There we go. That's a wonderful thick yogurt. Exactly the sort of texture that we're looking for. Remember, this was a plain yogurt we've made with this recipe, which means I can use it in savoury meals or I can use it as a dessert. And today I'm going to have a nice batch with some of our quince preserves. Hopefully you found this video useful in learning how to make some basic yogurt for yourself in a really quick and easy way. And hopefully it gives you the confidence to give it a go too. Catch you later.